Everyone has to drop these like knowledge bombs of like this like research article or whatnot. Dropping data is so much more valuable than that. And like, it's so much more like tangible for the patient to prove your worth and your knowledge and to get that buy-in. Like without that, I'm like, how are you going to convince people that what you're doing is working and that that's what they need?
So much of what we do in physical therapy is art and science. With data, it's really hard to argue anything. It takes out that subjectivity in PT. No, you got stronger, or no, we didn't make any change.
Yeah, the art is how you get there. I think the science is your milestones almost, right?
So important to make sure that there's this trust component to physical therapy that maybe we take for granted or maybe overlook.
Yeah.
But how great is it that we can have a tool that literally is just like, this isn't subjective at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't touch you and this is your data.
Welcome to the Prehab Podcast, your source for expert insights, breakthrough technology, and business strategies shaping the future of physical therapy. I'm Dr. Michael Lau, physical therapist, co-founder of Prehab, and today we're joined by Dr. Anthony Sinecor. Anthony is a certified athletic trainer, board-certified orthopedic physical therapist, and also vice president in North America for Vald Performance. With a background in biomechanics and as a published researcher, he's committed to advancing clinical practice in sports performance through objective testing and measurement. Joining him in the conversation is Adele, our Prehab clinic director, who brings a wealth of experience and expertise to the conversation. In today's episode, we'll explore how clinicians can use objective data to enhance patient outcomes, improve performance, and elevate the standard of care. If you're a clinician looking to stay ahead of the curve with the latest advancements in clinical practice, as well as sports performance, this one is for you. You do not want to miss it. Guys, we're here.
This is great.
Yay!
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
Finally, it's great to have us all together. Our history goes back. I was trying to think about this. 8-9 years. I think I was a student, right?
Yep.
Were you a student too?
Yep.
I want to hear all about this.
I don't think I told you.
I was talking about the magazine.
Private practice section, Impact Magazine.
Oh, that pose. We're all
power
posing.
pose.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that pose. I didn't realize that was for that.
All right. So yeah, I actually remember that. I can kind of take that story. So at the time I was a student. So I think you graduated 2017.
Yeah.
I graduated 2016 from Pitt Physical Therapy. Around that time, they were looking, so Private Practice Section's Impact Magazine was looking for a student editorial board member. And of course I was like trying to get involved with literally everything.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And part of that, what you had to do is the magazine editorial board members would end up creating 12 themes throughout the year. So every month had a new theme. And then part of our role was to actually find the contributing authors for different blogs, publications, everything that goes within that, and then match it to the theme.
Yeah.
And so I remember that there was this brand new organization of 3 guys all the way out in California.
Organization, I love it.
That was
So proper.
that was actually trying to do something cool and nice, innovative, and it had a new touch to it. And it was our technology theme. And so I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and reach out to them, see what's up. And you guys were obviously like very good at just kind of getting right to it. Yes, this is what we're gonna do. And I still remember what I learned from it. It was funny because it was all about drip content.
Yes.
You build one thing, you spend one day going through everything, and then take that and make it into little chunks. And I was like, these guys are so smart. Like, how great is that?
Genius.
And then like 3 months later, I saw you guys at CSM. It was a big lobby. And I was like, hey guys, I'm the one that like put you on that magazine. You're like, okay.
Oh, because you guys had never met in person.
We never met in person.
Oh,
yeah.
this all.
And I remember meeting you at CSM. I was like, heck yeah.
Oh.
Might have been one of your first followers of being like, are you the Prehab guys?
A question that gets asked all the time now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We were honored. I honestly feel like that was the first, like if you consider anything PR, that was the first like, oh wow, someone's actually listening. Someone actually kind of like wants to highlight this. So
I put you on the map.
You put us on the map.
Yeah,
You 100%
actually.
put us on the map.
But
I think that was
actually.
the first one because we started in 2016. So that was the CSM right after that. So that 100% was the first one. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Dude,
Thank
Small
you.
world.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank
Come
you.
on, well, look at us
We
now.
owe Prehab guys to this guy right here.
Yeah.
Well, just testament to all the good stuff you guys have been doing.
Yeah, it's been great and met you there as a student. And then what's been cool is like we'd see you always at CSMs. And then we started the clinic a couple years after that. And then we've been integrating Vald technology since day one. You pitched hard for it. You
I
fought
know.
hard for it.
I was a big fan. I was fangirling from afar. It's been a huge like value add to the clinic. I actually don't know where it would be without Vald and you and Mike and the entire team. So like I'm just so excited to have you here and continue and work together and build something big. Because I think Prehab and Vald have a lot in common. I think we have like very similar missions. I think last year in 2024, we got to visit you guys in Brisbane, Australia.
Represent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we did our little
I
jersey
love-
swap.
I know.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and it was just like so cool to see other companies that have a similar passion and like want to really make a difference in, you know, the health space, wellness space, and doing it through technology. So even it's so ironic that I feel like that Impact Magazine, like the theme was technology, because you weren't working with Vald back then.
Oh no.
Isn't that crazy?
Because at this point, you know, I probably switched over to Vald after 6 years of practice.
Yeah.
You know, and it can go into my story and kind of how it all got me there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a crazy journey, and it all comes down to, you know, just keeping the mission alive of like, okay, being in front of clinicians to help people empower themselves to be better clinicians, help more people. Like it just is that big circle.
Yeah.
So
how did you like take us through your journey to Vald?
All right.
Because every PT journey is like different. We all end up in different places. We all get there differently.
In 2016, was Vald even around? It was, right?
It was,
What
yeah.
product?
So
One product,
just almost
maybe?
literally right around there.
Okay.
Yeah. So
wait, if I was
Nordboard.
listening, you just gave it away. I was gonna say I wanted to guess Nordboard.
Oh.
I remember it was one of the quiz
Okay,
questions.
she gets 10 points.
10 points for Gryffindor. Okay, anyway, go ahead.
Perfect. Yeah, we can certainly get into the history there too. But yeah, so ended up going to Indiana University for athletic training. So obviously this really started back when I thought I wanted to be an athletic trainer. Loved everything about sport rehab, and kind of realized really quickly that, you know, the hours were really tough, the pay was really tough, and the autonomy was kind of slightly dwindling. Now, obviously that's changed, luckily for that profession and all athletic trainers out there. But I just knew kind of right around that time finishing up undergraduate school that I wanted to find a little bit something with a better place. And the most likely scenario from there, my dad's a physical therapist. So I was like, okay, let's jump right into
Ortho?
PT
Sports
school.
PT?
So my dad is actually an academic researcher for Washington University in St. Louis for like 35 years.
Very cool.
Now he's in High Point University, still doing research, still kicking, going along. But yeah, so it was always like very close to home. So decided to go to physical therapy school. Him and I both agreed WashU was probably too close to the sun to do that. Yeah. But then I applied to University of Pittsburgh, ended up getting in, and absolutely fell in love with the profession and everything about it. So much so that I wanted to contribute as an editorial board member for
as a student.
I wanted to get into research. And so that actually probably started the first part of my journey, which was I went into at the time, he's the director now of the program, Jay Eargang. I went into his office when he was a professor, probably my second, third week as a student, and said, I want to do research. Of course, you know, classic for those that know my dad. It's like, of course,
Yeah.
But he literally, I remember him just looking at me and saying, pass anatomy, then come talk to me. And I was like, all right, fair.
So you passed with flying colors.
And then, I wouldn't say flying colors. Being a student was never necessarily my strong point, but persistence.
Yeah.
So then I literally, after the first day of passing that summer semester, I went into his office, said, I'd love to do research. And I think he kind of realized, like,
what were you guys doing at the time? What research? I'm curious.
well, so, I mean, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I could have
You're
been
like,
part
put
of
me anywhere,
anything.
put me in,
I was like,
coach,
I don't
anywhere.
even kind of know what research is. Like, IRB, spell it for me.
That's great. So
I
I'm
felt
going to
so
do it.
bad helping with research as a student. I was like, I hope I'm definitely fucking up all the time. I felt horrible. It's like I just didn't have enough knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So he ended up linking me up with now a really good friend and at the time really good mentor, Andrew Lynch, who was a postdoc, was doing a lot of really good research around knee extension strength. And, you know, he basically just said, tag along, do whatever you can. Nice. And, you know, probably I would imagine most students kind of do that for a little bit, peter out a little bit. And I just kept going. And I was like, okay, what can I do? What can I help with? And so he was doing this study that was looking at the validation of any clinically feasible tools. So 1 rep max testing, handheld dynamometers. We had a Biodex in our clinic. So we had the ability to compare it to the gold standard, isokinetic and isometric strength there. And just seeing, okay, what could be the second best if you didn't have a $60,000 machine? So fast forward several years later, I'm doing all the participant research data collection. Then I started doing a little bit of the writing, started getting in it. And this was me and one other person in my class. And before long, we're third years. And then we finished the study. The manuscript gets picked up by JOSPT.
Oh, wow.
Sure enough, just as luck has it, the Andrew was basically like, you know what? I actually think you've been putting in a lot of work, you and this other student, Andrew Evans. You guys have been doing a lot of work with it. So, it actually is probably a good time in my career that if I become the last author, that you guys take the primary author.
That's awesome.
And so I was just lucky enough at putting in a lot of work, obviously, but being able to get the first author of that paper. I call it the gift that keeps on giving because everyone cites it. But realistically, go back to the main point is what it showed was if you don't have a isokinetic dynamometer, if you don't have a big biodex, then the second best is a handheld dynamometer. Mm-hmm. And then for those that are watching that still don't have potentially, hopefully by the end of this, we talk about some technology that can be easy to access. But if you don't, then a 90 to 45 degree knee extension 1 rep max is also really close to what the handheld dynamometer was. So in that order. So that then brings me into my residency. So then I did an orthopedic residency at the University of Delaware, practiced for those 14 months and just really got good at the other pieces. Right. So the reason why I wanted to choose to do a residency was I really felt like my third year rotation. So at Pittsburgh at the time, they had 2 full years of didactic curriculum where you simultaneously are in the clinic. So Tuesdays and Thursdays as a first year, Mondays and Wednesdays as a second year. So you're getting a lot of clinic time. In your third year, it's all clinic. And the person that I did my clinical rotation with, I did 6 months in a transition care unit, 6 months in an outpatient ortho that was primarily spine.
Did you think you were always going to go ortho sports, or were you not sure going in?
So I kind of I was hedging a little bit.
Yeah.
I always wanted to be a private practice owner.
Okay. Yeah.
I just wanted to own my own practice and get it.
Sounds familiar.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Him, not me.
So that is why I chose to do a residency, was because I was like, I'm actually really comfortable with spine and just about any spinal condition at this point. Just being 6 months in, obviously that little Dunning-Kruger there, right? You're like, am I
feel
really?
so confident. I know everything.
Everything. I could just jump right in.
I could heal everyone.
Yeah.
But
Magical
I needed
hands.
to make sure that I also had shoulder, ankle, all the above. And that's where I felt like the ortho residency could help me. In there, then as an ortho resident, University of Delaware requires all the orthopedic residents to do all ergonomic assessments for anyone on staff at UDel.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And running a amputee clinic once a month. So then I'm just getting all of this other thing, other application that I didn't realize is part of, physical therapy in a lot of ways, or at least something that I would be interested in. So then I graduated, ended up going into first private practice because I was like, who better can I learn from than someone's in it? So that was in Delaware. And then the fun part that brings me back into this is I knew that, for a private practice, salary wasn't going to be meeting all of my expectations. And so instead of negotiating salary, I negotiated with the owner at the time to get a handheld dynamometer, and it's replaced.
I love it.
I was like, look.
It sounds like you a little bit.
Yeah, it does sound like me.
Right?
Except I lost it and paid for it myself, but that's fine.
Well, it makes you feel better. I didn't get to keep it when I left.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, fair.
Took the pay cut.
Yeah.
Got your toy, but it's not yours.
Yeah.
But, one data point at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
So then after that, I did some travel physical therapy. My wife's also a physical therapist. We met in PT school. And so then we were traveling, popping around, right? A lot of similarities.
Yeah. So cute.
Crazy.
And so that led us to California. So obviously where we were mostly kind of the Midwest, East Coast, then we came over kind of around 2019 into California, Bay Area, Kaiser Permanente. And then we were coming down to Santa Barbara where we live now. And the pandemic hit. And where naturally was maybe 115 potential travel jobs in California prior to March 2020 was 6 across the entire country. Yeah. And so we were like, well, we have a few choices. Do we go back and live with our parents for a while? We didn't have licenses in those states, kind of figure it out. Or do we just get jobs again. And so we ended up looking around, and in Santa Barbara, there was a really strong clinic. Allie found a job there. I found another clinic that had a performance like sister clinic. So it was one that was in a standard insurance-based outpatient ortho, and then there was another that was owned by the same people that was more cash pay, had a performance facility to it. So while I was helping lead a lot of their post-operative rehab on the insurance side, I started dipping my toes more and more into the performance side. And so that's where, and realistically, there's a lot of great models out there. I still consider this to be one of the better ones that I've seen, which was because, it's Santa Barbara, it's a little bit more affluent, but in that area, this space had a biomechanics lab, a full gym, and then a PT, treatment area in the back. And as long as you remember, you get
access to all of them.
60 minutes. So an eval, you get 60 minutes with a physical therapist to go over goals and full body assessment, 60 minutes in the biomechanics lab. And then from there, you get a personalized treatment program, exercise program that you can do in the building. And then every 30 days, you get 30 more minutes with the PT.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
30 more minutes in the biomechanics lab just to check in, make sure you're reaching your goals.
And this was when? Cool. 2020?
This was 2020 to 2021.
I thought that's pretty progressive, yeah.
I was going to say, I was like, then, do you know of other clinics that do that
even now?
Because I'm like, I can't even.
Not like that, no.
Yeah, I can't either. Which again, very progressive and
especially in LA. There's not even like big clinics in LA because there's just not enough land, there's not enough space. It's too expensive.
We'll have one in a month.
We'll have one soon.
Absolutely,
so it'll be like
absolutely.
That.
And it's a great, launching point to realize like, what does it do? It creates this opportunity to put data into what we're, everything we're about to talk about, but also it brings the patient in to the conversation, right?
Totally.
Like these are your goals. This is how you're going to get there. See the data. This is what's showing how you are actually doing. There's going to be bad days. There's going to be good days. So I then started doing a lot more on the physical therapy side, but really wanted to get into that biomechanics lab.
Yeah.
And so then slowly I started building more of the protocols and starting to realize, okay, how do I use this 8-camera motion capture system? The force plates in the ground. They did have a biodex. They did have an instrumented pressure treadmill. So just about anything.
They let you use all the stuff?
Oh yeah.
Did you just say first author and then?
I was like, I'm a learned doctor, so let me come in. But the cool thing was it was my playhouse. I could just play around at the off hours, just start tinkering until I was like, why don't we do this and why don't we do that? I just grew a little bit more of a biomechanical passion there to learn clinical decision making and all the above. So this is where Vald comes in, because at the time, we realized, or at least I realized that, time is money, just like anything else. I'm documenting on the side because I'm still on the insurance side. I'm still covering my bases for the cash pay side. But then, you have to, people are spending money to be able to say, okay, like, what did you get from this test? I spent an hour in the lab. Like, what does that mean? And so we ended up realizing that we needed a fast, efficient way to create reports. The Biodex was great. The CME motion capture and Burtec plates were great. Using Neuraxon, it was all great, except nothing played with each other, right? So I had to pull this and pull that. What's data? What's noise? What's actual actionable stuff that if I change this, is it really going to change that? If something broke, I'd have to call a service rep and it would be like, okay, I'll be out in 5 weeks. And then when they came, they'd be like, yeah, it's broken.
Now I need to order
You're like, no way.
I knew that. And they'd be like, it'd be another $250 to replace that. And it's only going to come in 6 more weeks. Right. So these little pain points occur that are like, okay, we could deal with it. But it's just not great. And so that's when a Vald rep came in because we were looking and exploring for new options. And basically he was like, yeah, we have one of those. We have that. Yeah. We have all these things. Yeah. And the best part is you click this button, it makes this report. And so, at the time I was kind of just really looking for something a little bit more unique for me and my personality. I still love treating. I actually still treat. I'm a concierge therapist up in Santa Barbara still, where I use some of our technology. But what I really thought was like, this is the wave. This is where the profession needs to go if it's not already going. And I think I can help shepherd that in. So
which you've done a great job of.
Oh, I appreciate that. It's all from, just good being people.
We need to prove our worth. And a lot of times you need that data, whether you're proving the worth to a payer, whether you're proving it to a doctor or to the patient themselves. Like you're saying, just, hey, you came in for all this testing. You've been working with me for 3 months. Look at your results. And I know that's what you use. You have so many, you love the reports. You have so much objective data. You send your patients, all your patients with all the objective data.
Yeah. Patients, doctors, everyone gets it. And like that integration makes it so much easier for sure. I think one thing I want to like rewind on a bit, because like this really stood out to me when you first started telling your story, because my experience in PT school was very different than yours. So it makes me very optimistic to hear that back in 2016, there were like research labs and schools that were integrating that type of research and technology like that early on. So it makes me hopeful for the future, because I do think that is one thing that like, and we'll talk about this more, is like I feel like our field is living in the past. And like what is going on? Like why is like this technology not being integrated when it is so easily achievable, when there is like all this alternatives, like, like Rep Max or, handheld dynamometry, like why are people not using that more, So I think it's really cool that like you were surrounded by that like early on in school, because I imagine whether that was consciously or not, that kind of played a role in the trajectory of your career, versus a lot of other PTs don't have that early exposure. And that's where they kind of get stuck in these ruts of manual muscle tests and such.
You need exposure, and then you need buy-in. I mean, you were saying that you took a pay cut to get a handheld dynamometer. You fought for months to get it at another clinic, couldn't get it. And then even when you had it, no one else was using it, because you have to teach them how to use it. They have to understand what the data means. They have to also be able to understand the value of it. Data is data. Like data means nothing unless you make decisions from it.
100%.
And that's where the reports come in. Like all data, you need to be able to make decisions. That's the goal of collecting data.
No, very true.
There's so many layers to it. Like what data is meaningful? How do you make sure it's good data? And then like, how can you actually relay that to your patients so that they understand why we're collecting it? There's years where I was looking at handheld dynamometer tests and being like, all right, you need to get it there. And they're like, okay, well, I trust you. And it's like, well, I'm realizing now that was probably half the battle that I missed was just me trying to convince them that I'm smart and that I needed to know this and do all this. And this is all cutting edge. At the end of the day, if you just tell a really good story of why, I think that's probably going to solve most of those problems.
I almost see it as like, I feel like when we're in school or when you're like an early clinician, I feel like everyone has to like drop these like knowledge bombs of like this like research article or whatnot. For me, like I feel like dropping data is so much more valuable than that. And like it's so much more like tangible for the patient to prove your worth and your knowledge and to get that buy-in. Like without that, I'm like, how are you going to convince people that what you're doing is working and that's what they need? I just like, I can't even fathom it, and go for it.
There's so much of what we do in physical therapy is art and science, right? Like we know there's tissue healing and there's a certain amount of weeks for proliferation and all the different stages of that. But then so much of what you do, you ask 10 physical therapists how to treat, some patient. We all may have a different way of doing it. We all may also get that patient to where their goals are at the same time limit, but we have a different way of doing it. With data, it's really hard to argue anything. This is just the result. Granted, you could be like, well, how valid is the data? And that's a whole nother conversation. But at least if you're presenting some data, it takes out that subjectivity in PT. No, you got stronger, or no, we didn't make any change.
The art is how you get there. I think the science is like your milestones almost, right? So,
and how important, and one of the things that I think we talk about often inside of kind of our team at Vald, but so important to make sure that there's this trust component to physical therapy that maybe we take for granted or maybe overlook, right? So in most cases, when a patient goes to a physical therapy clinic, they're given the next available person. They're usually not seeking out this person because of that expertise, right? They'll have a script that says, go here because I trust them. Like, great, good enough. And now you have 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour to build trust with this person, to give them your knowledge, to tell them, hey, I know these research. We do that probably in a way to build some trust. But also I'm listening to you. I'm active listening. I'm showing all of these abilities to tell you that I care. Because that's realistically what PTs do, right? We care about getting you better. We just have to relay that. But how great is it that we can have a tool that literally is just like, this isn't subjective at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I didn't touch you and
Yeah.
this is your
Yeah.
data,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When you're squatting and it says a 38% asymmetry, you
Yeah.
might not care that it's 38.
Correct.
But what I care about is trying to get you to 5
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
10. And if you're not invested in that, then that's what we're going to work on together. But it just helps you be like, because there's so many times too where, early clinicians have to rely on so much of like trusting the process, and their patients feel that. Like,
Yeah.
do I really need to come in a 4th and 5th time where if the only thing I'm hearing is how is it? Still
Yeah.
painful. Okay, well, like at what point do
Yeah.
I hope that they say, please, today when you come in, it's not painful anymore, and that means
Yeah.
it's working, right?
Yeah.
There's so many now layers that we can provide data points to that's just like, look, it is working. You can see
Yeah,
this,
totally.
even if pain isn't our primary outcome measure.
Yeah. I think for me, like, being a practicing clinician and how Prehab PT operates, like, I think, and we talk about this a lot, a big population that we see here is patients that have like failed PT. And it's so unfortunate because I always tell people most of the time it's like PT that I think has failed these patients, because they'll come in, let's say my population of ACLers, like, oh, like my glutes were weak. Great. Awesome. How did they tell you your glutes were weak?
Squeezed them.
Yeah, touched them. Actually, I did. Okay, not the glutes, hopefully.
Yeah.
But I did have a patient tell me that their PT literally went and like squeezed their quad. And they're like, yep, you're 70%. You're good to go.
Oh, Jesus
But-
Christ.
70%. This hand feels 70% as full as that one. But I think the point being, let's say their glutes are weak. Give them some side steps, give them some clams, give them these basic exercises. How can you actually tell if that theory was correct if you can't measure it in any way? I just can't wrap my head around that. So that part for me as a clinician is very frustrating, because I think if everyone had access to that data, like, yes, force plates are take a basic handheld dynamometer. Like, we know the price point for that is like significantly lower than everything else. It makes life way easier. I saw today an Instagram post. You can also, I also knew this before, but you can use it as a goniometer. Like, there's so many different ways that you could use it, and it's so clinically applicable and easy to integrate. I have such a hard time wrapping my head around why it's not done more often, because you give people false hope by saying that this theory that I had, like, your glutes are weak and now they're strong because I gave you clams. It's like, you don't know that. So I don't know. I can go on about this forever, but it's just the idea of how can we make this data more accessible to people, because it makes a huge difference in patient outcomes. And as physical therapists, that's our goal at the end of the day. It decrease that pain, improve patient outcomes, improve performance, improve function, improve quality of life. And you can't do that without data. I truly believe that.
I think there has to be a demand for it in order for it to be something that's common practice. And the demand.
So how do we create the demand?
Well, it can come from multiple ways. If payers, insurance companies demand that, which they do, right? They need to see progress on us 5 times to the standard, whatever it is that someone's making progress. But the real demand should be the patient. And most people expect that now. I have a Whoop, people have an Oura Ring, people have their iPhone tracking everything.
Yeah.
They expect to see their data. They expect to see improvements. And if your patient's saying, well, am I getting better? Am I not? You need to be, as a PT, you need to be able to provide that from. And it is so easy. We've had these tools for decades. It's not like it's a brand new tool. I mean, yes, the technology gets better and there's newer renditions of it, but this is not like all of a sudden now we have data.
Yeah.
We've always had it, but it's way easier to have.
Bohannon's been making research normative data reports on this since the 80s.
Yeah.
Connecticut. So it's like,
and somehow we're still squeezing quads.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what it comes down to there is you bring up a good point around what we're doing is we're elevating the floor of clinical practice, right? There's so maybe I'm a little bit biased and somewhat optimistic in this new kind of few years of we're having good conversations with clinicians all over the world and all over the country saying, I want to do better, but there's still, for every one clinician saying that, there's probably another 9, maybe 7 saying well, why do I need this still? And that's what we're really focusing on, is trying to continue to raise the floor of clinical practice through the use of objective tests and measures. If we can get the insurance companies, the surgeons, the other layers of where patients are being seen to be able to then see the value of this, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
100%.
I think that's something that I touched on too when I presented at VolCon, was just the importance of the education and educating the every player in this, right? Whether it's the payer, the doctor, the PT, the patient, like everyone needs to have the understanding of the value. Otherwise, they're not going to buy into it, you know? So even if it is that one PT at that clinic and the other 7 don't, like I've been in that position. It's like, how do you, that's a barrier to convince 7 or 9 new like people have never used that this is worth your time and your investment, you know?
And then you feel like an outcast there.
Yes, I felt like a big fat loser. But the point being too, and the other thing I really appreciate about Vald is like you guys have also developed some really great like protocols and guidelines that do make it really easy. And I think that like, and similar to Prehab, I think one of the biggest things is decreasing these barriers. Yeah. And it's like, okay, how do these people learn? Some people are visual, you guys have videos, some people want to read, right? Like, so you guys have those guidelines and whatnot. So I think that it's like trying to understand how we can affect the masses, and you have to be as, you know, innovative as you can with kind of those modalities to educate them. So I think you guys have done a good job of that.
Well, I appreciate it. It's probably also really a good time to just say what Vald is, because we know it all.
Yeah.
Maybe everyone else doesn't.
Yeah.
So Vald as a whole. So
30 minutes. We just wear these cool T-shirts.
If you're in, you're in. If you're out, it's one of those. If you know, you know.
If you know.
What is it? IYKYK? Is that what
I
it
don't
is?
know.
If you
Sure.
know,
IYKYK.
IYKYK.
No one says that.
That's
don't do that
that's
again.
going to be the new
hashtag.
Yeah, the new hashtag for ValdCon 2025. Yeah.
So what is Vald? What is ValdCon?
Yeah. So originally we kind of talked about it as Vald Performance, right? Because back in 2013, this is when it was just a research project to be able to solve a simple problem that we're even talking about now, is just how do we try and put a number to hamstring strength to prevent potentially recurring injuries, or actually initial injuries of the hamstring level.
The Nord board.
So that's where the Nord board comes in. And so this was a research project done out in Australia. So it's an Australian-based company, to where they simply just really wanted to be able to look at, okay, how can we start? And they took 2 handheld dynamometers, crane scales, anchored it on an AirX pad. So you put your knees on the AirX pad, the hooks around the tension dynamometer, have them do a Nordic, and how much strength is going through your left, how much strength is going through your right. Yeah. And is that something that we want to start tracking? And of course, the answer was yes. And most professional soccer teams jumped on like that.
Instantly.
And that's where Vald Performance came in. And since then we commercialized it as a company. 2 co-founders, Sam James, Laurie Malone.
Good
and
people.
What year was this, by the way?
So the original kind of 2015, 16. So 13 was the research study. It didn't really get commercialized for another 4 years.
This is all around FIFA 11, like when that was blowing up to ACL injury prevention. I remember that was huge, like 2016, 2017.
It's all about hitting waves, right? The right time.
Same with Prehab.
So then very shortly thereafter, several new products came in, whether they were initially needed. So the first was an actual need from the same clients that had the Nord board, said, we're also thinking that there's some correlation to hip strength, particularly the inner thigh, the
Force
groin.
frame.
And
Yeah,
the force frame came
I'm
in.
trying to remember the quiz.
Yeah.
I remember at ValdCon there was like the quiz. No,
Now the OGs will actually call it the groin bar.
Yes,
groin bar.
It was called a groin
that's
bar.
not as marketable.
It's not a very probably appealing name to the masses anymore.
Yeah.
So we quickly turned it into the force frame. But since then, now we have 8 different products, ranging between motion capture analysis, so the human track, force plates, the force decks, our blood flow restriction cuffs, the air bands, the timing gates or smart speed, and the dynamo, obviously the handheld dynamometer. And so all together, I think if we all count that, that's 7. The 8th is the hub, where all the data goes. And so together, that makes a really good ecosystem to be able to just put a number to something that anyone might think there's value into the human body. And so that's where probably around 2019, 2020, the company decided to make sure that there was a good pivot into health as well.
That's what
so
I
we
was
have
gonna say,
3 main verticals: performance, health, and tactical.
Obviously, we can't forget about our tactical athletes, whether those are your military, as well as fire, police, EMTs, first responders. So together, we're on a mission to try and make sure that at a clinically feasible solution, so we always talk about 4 main pillars: has to be valid, has to be reliable, has to be portable, and it has to be cost efficient.
Yep.
And ideally,
Break down barriers.
that's where our subscription model comes in. So
Yeah.
I guess the one thing that we did that was kind of fighting the mold a little bit is instead of buying it outright, we put it on a subscription model.
Yeah.
We talked before the podcast about the iPhone 15 or 13, who has what.
Yeah.
The nice part about it is we kind of take care of all the things, all the pain points that I talked about at my last job. That's what we solve. If anything breaks, we just replace it. If you need anything, we're always, either a couple of hours drive away, just about anywhere USA. You're always going to have a level of support onboarding. We talked about having all these different clinicians who just didn't pick it up. We can do free in services and onboardings, and whether it's virtual or
that was pre-Vald days. Pre-Vald.
Yeah, I mean, I had two phone calls this morning where someone just called me and said, "What metric should I look at for X?" And I just told them. They're like,
"That's so helpful.
Thank you."
Just be guided rather than spending an hour trying to figure it out on their own.
Exactly. So we bundle in all the support, so all the hardware, all the software. We don't upsell you in a number of profiles or anything like that. It's like you get everything.
Well, that's also what I like. And again, going back to what I started saying is like we're so similar because like that's exactly how the Prehab brand and company and app has evolved. Like we went from programs
paper model to subscription.
To subscription.
I was going to say the same thing. And it's crazy. Like there's a lot of times there's like consumer mistrust or people are just tired of subscriptions, but subscriptions allow businesses to invest in their customers. Like our whole mission has always been the P's in front of rehab. Right? You got the P on, not me. I was like, where's the P? It's preventative rehabilitation, right? Like people are always reactive. After the knee gets hurt, then they work on their knee. After their ankle sprains, then they work on it. How do we get someone to be proactive is you have to make it easy for them to access. When we were charging people $150 to $200 per program, they're only going to spend that money when it's a reactive problem. Mm-hmm. When we make it a membership, we can provide everything. We can give them the knee program, the hip program, the shoulder program. And they may only need the knee, and that's why they came. Mm-hmm. But now we're giving them access to the shoulder program from an old volleyball injury. Yeah. And with the subscription, you're able to do that. So just know that like subscriptions allow businesses to give all of their resources to the customer. Like all 60 programs are available for one subscription versus you used to pay $200 for one program. Mm-hmm. So it's very similar. It hits on your mission and you're able to break down barriers of access.
So it allows us for R&D and making things better. So the real reason the groin bar became the force frame was because the crossbar had 4 paddles, 2 inner, 2 outer. So if you're hook lying, you push in, you push out. But then people started realizing, hey, I could actually do shoulder ER/IR as well. So they would kind of jerry-rig their own position to be able to get there. Well, we said, well, let's just actually make it different. So then we created a rotating crossbar, 360 degrees, that locks in every 15-degree increment. The paddles can move in a flat position, a wider position, a narrow position. And so what we did is we made the new upgraded crossbar, and we replaced everybody's. So that's part of that subscription is upgrades, no extra cost to the subscription. And so we're always going to, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we make it better, and you're going to be able to have that luxury as well.
What's so cool is you can tell it's built by PTs. When I do all the software for Prehab, like I am my own user of the app. I am the user of Vald and I'm a PT, and I know how I would want something to be arranged. When you guys release something new, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly where I would have put it too. And it's hard to explain. Like UX, the user experience is really hard to explain. You guys have a great design team and a lot of PTs that are there providing that advice. But as a PT, you want things to be fast. You're in the clinic, you only have so much time with your patient, and you want to spend that time with the patient, not fumbling around, trying to figure out what you want to do. And the UX is amazing. I'll say that.
One of the biggest barriers with technology is when you're adopting it early on, it has to be intuitive. Right? Like that's why the Apple just made such great products initially on, because even 3-year-olds know how to pinch and swipe and all these things. So what we needed to do.
Can 3-year-olds use Vald?
We haven't tested it yet.
Are there any norms on 3-year-olds?
There's some youth population data.
We actually brought the Force Decks to like a community event.
Oh yeah, we had a
my God,
little
all
kid
these
on
like
it.
little kids wanted to use it. They were like jumping.
I
don't think they know how to jump.
But
it didn't even like register, and they probably weighed like 20 pounds.
It was like a game for them.
So maybe we need to like lower the floor so that we can get data for the 3-year-olds.
So maybe disclaimer, 6 and up. Right?
Yeah, exactly, like a toy.
But what it really comes down to with a new adoption of technology is if your first 2 or 3 times using it creates a pain point, it may never be used again.
Yep, never going to go back.
And so that's why it's so important to be able to make sure that it's at least useful enough to be able to understand, okay, what do I do if this goes wrong? Or this is what I do to get into the next slide or the next page.
Yeah.
And so, we take a lot of care and attention to doing that. And all of our feedback comes from our clients. And then all of that feedback gets put into forms that then we actually go in and make it better. So it doesn't hurt that we're all a team of clinicians anyway, but making sure that it's actually useful to the people using it is also
that's
key.
One of the most important things. Like so much of our team is clinicians, and I think that's what makes it so powerful. And I've always said clinicians make great like entrepreneurs if they want to do that and they have that mindset. And I hate that there's so many healthcare companies that don't have healthcare providers on their board or on their leadership team or even founded by healthcare providers. It's like, who are you doing it for?
Yeah.
You guys are building products for tactical athletes, for clinicians, for the end user. You need to have those people on your team or else you're going to get lost and you're going to be building the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's the same with us. We're building the exercise library. It's for clinicians. Like we're rebuilding that right now. We already know how to fix it because we use it every day ourselves.
Yeah.
Or the asterisk at the bottom that says this person is a paid consultant.
Oh yeah.
It's like, well, we require at least people to use our products and actually like it and enjoy it, and theoretically would want to pay for it themselves before we even have that discussion.
100%.
I think
go for it.
I would say the other thing that I think that's really helpful is just like how awesome like the customer support is too. Like I think that also helps like decrease those barriers that you can like call you or Mike or whoever and kind of get that help if we do run into one of those roadblocks. The other thing I feel like as talking about like your team of clinicians, the thing that comes up for me, being just like the cynic that I am, I'm like, there's a lot of burnout in our field. I feel like there's a lot of PTs that are like looking for alternative ways to practice and to provide value without treating, right? Because it is exhausting to, be in the weeds of it all day, every day. So I'm kind of curious to hear and like learn more about, I guess, like how the PTs that work for you guys came to be there. Like, what is the road to working at Vald? Why are most of them there? What do they get out of it? Because I've met a lot of them when we were in Brisbane, and you have an awesome team. They're all super passionate. And I just think it's really cool that Vald does provide an alternative way to kind of give back and provide value in our field without having to do the hands-on care.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the key word that you just said there was passion.
Yeah.
When we're getting our people reach out all the time, and I wish I could probably do a better job at just responding to LinkedIn because for those that are watching,
do you think LinkedIn is considered like social media channel? I'm just curious.
I probably I would
really?
say so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I live under a rock then.
It's social in a professional context.
It's very much a non-healthcare
I feel like he
platform.
like literally uses LinkedIn like it's Instagram, and I'm like on TikTok like doom scrolling. It's like very different versions of ourselves. But continue.
So we get a lot of requests of like, hey, can we join the team? And really what it comes down to is a few key factors. Unfortunately, we are running a business, so it has to be like, are you the right fit for, personality wise, your interest, but also kind of your experience? Have you talk to me about whether you would do knee extension strength at 90 degrees, 60 degrees, 45 degrees. And you don't have to have a perfect answer there. We just have to know that, you're invested enough to want to make that decision and figure out where to go to do that, because that will be the conversation with clients, and that will be something that we really require for being able to build into kind of the brand we're still building. And so that's probably the first thing, is just like having really good, honest, open conversations and just making sure that people know that, one, it's not a life raft for if you're trying to get out of the profession. To me, burnout is very much about your own feelings and perspective of the environment just as much as it is the environment that you're in.
Would agree.
Right. And so we have to have a conversation, and I probably, if anything, usually talk people more into staying in the profession rather than asking them, hey, you'd be great at Vald. Like we want, like I'm a PT first. We want people to stay in this profession because we know why we were in it in the first place. Circumstances happen, but we're just not really interested in finding people who are looking for the next shiny thing. That are the people that are willing to be on the boat for making change and helping raise the floor of clinical practice. These are the things that I always look for, and some of our hiring team always looks at, because once they're in our ecosystem internally, that's a culture. That's something that we're trying to maintain as well. And people jumping from one to the next without really having a drive or purpose that fits our mission could become really toxic really quickly if we don't kind of maintain that.
Culture is everything. And the internal drive that you were mentioning is so important. And I know for us, when we started Prehab, it's like, how can we have a bigger impact, right? Like I can treat 8 to 12 patients a day, but if I can help a clinician through technology that then treats 8 to 12 patients, I just multiplied, my impact. And it's like these physical therapists, I'll just use Vald for example, they can go ahead and help create this amazing product. But not just create an amazing product, but kind of like you were saying, a PT called you and asked, what's the best test for this? You actually know how to use the product too. And that is huge. How do you help us clinicians in the clinic utilize a product to help a patient right in front of me? And then you're able to amplify your impact.
I remember doing one of the demos here kind of early on, and it was just like, look, these are the 3 tests that like I would do, but like you tell me, is this something that actually vibes well? And you're like, actually, we would do this way, but cool, let's do that instead. Because I don't want to show you what I would do. I would want to make sure that you guys know the value of when I leave here. Can you see yourself using this system? And that's, I think, in essence, why we don't hire salespeople. Like it's, sales has such a gross.
What do you guys call your not sales team? What is the
business
term?
development managers?
Yes, BDMs. That's what it was.
So we have we have 2 roles in the States. Mostly they're either BDMs, so business development managers, or CSMs, client success managers. Typically, they're usually clinical, so whether they're physical therapists, athletic trainers, strength and conditioning coach, sports scientists, the idea is the business development managers are more of your local reps. So they're the ones that will drive to you, show you the systems, ideally ask if you're willing to jump on and be a client. But then once that you are a client, then we also offer client success, unlimited, free part of the subscription that's entirely virtual to most degrees, but it gives you the opportunity to be 24/7 basically, just because we have client success managers in all parts of the world.
So someone really is always awake.
Exactly.
Remember when you came in, we wanted the force decks initially, right? That was the original thing, but then we ended up getting force decks and
the Dynamo.
What's your favorite? I never asked you.
I can't function without either. I can't function without either.
We're building. I saw our new space. We're moving in a new space for the audience that doesn't know. In like less than a month, we're building out a testing zone. When we were in, we keep talking about Brisbane. We should probably say why. Vald invited Adele out to give a talk to the entire team at Vald, and so thank you for inviting us. And it was all about providing our value and being able to share our value to providers, to coaches. I don't want to steal your thunder. But
it's decreasing barriers to enable, implementing health technology.
Now I lost my train of thought, but did a great job there.
Adele did great.
Adele did great.
Adele is great.
Adele did great.
Adele is awesome.
It was awesome because what we try to do is once a year we go to our headquarters in Brisbane, which is a really fun trip to go to Australia.
First time there.
But then it's like, let's actually get into like a celebration of what we're doing, the impact we're likely making, but also like hearing from clients and hearing from people who are in the weeds, like doing it day in and day out. Like if it doesn't work, we'd like to know about it. So it's actually kind of fun to hear that you like both. And I think it's also good just to the listener to realize why. In some ways is the way that we talk about our systems, at least when I talk about it, pitching it to people, is you're trying to fill buckets, right? Like the force decks being the dual force plated system, you get a left and a right. And so whether you're doing squats, push-ups, balance testing, long gone are the days where you have to actually only look at these for sports specific or return to play. Like post-op day 1, you could start doing some weight shifting and just being able to put a number to things. But that's one type of bucket, right? That's a functional movement bucket. The dynamo, whether it's strength or range of motion, is now looking at that bucket. So movement quality through a muscle group or a joint group. So that way then you're looking at that 2 different ways. So you're not probably needing just one or the other unless, you feel like that's what's needed for your business. But that's where then if you look at the smart speed, the timing gates, that's just acceleration, deceleration, change of direction. We have clients that are using them for 5 time sit to stands, tug tests, 6-minute walk test, just so that they don't have to have their hands on a stopwatch or use the roller. It's just ability to guard a little bit differently. So like you can use it for so many different ways, but it's all about what buckets you're trying to fill.
And I think
go for it.
I would say like the thing for me with that too is like it can be used throughout the continuum. And I think the thing that really bothers me about how health tech, I think, is still perceived, and I think it even speaks to like how Vald started as a performance company right now, kind of bleeding into health, is that people and larger organizations in the performance field, I think, understand the value in this technology a little bit more than health does, in my opinion. So I think that people think, oh, like timing gates are only applicable for college and professional athletes. They don't see the value in using it in like a tug or anything like that. Or, even the fact that you can do a quiet stand on the force decks. It's not just like single leg jump. So it's so applicable throughout the rehab continuum, which means it's applicable to a wider variety of patients and clients that I think people really understand. Yep. And I think that that's where like the missing piece is as far as health is like, it's not just for the elite athlete. It trickles down to like your grandma too,
Movement is movement.
Yeah.
Everyone has to be able to move, whether they're running at full speed or just walking, on a tug. The equipment should be the same. The principles of how we help that person get up off the chair and do a tug versus how we help someone do curvilinear running. It's all the same. The principles that guide it are the same. So the equipment is the same too. We just have to be creative and I guess open up our, get rid of some of the barriers that we have, because when we see things like, oh, that's fancy equipment, that must only be for professionals. No, you are a human being. So is that professional athlete.
I always tell people,
we all have a shoulder. We all have two shoulders, it's the same shoulder.
I think for my patient, like I want patients to feel like when they come in here, they get the same level of care that a professional athlete would get. Like whether, just because you don't play professional sports doesn't mean you don't deserve that same level of care that they are. Your goals are just as important as that athlete's goals. So there's no reason why we can't take that same technology and apply it, And I think to kind of bring it back full circle, I think even to the conversation about burnout is like, this makes it easier. The integration that we talk about, having it all in one place. So like your story, right, is like, that is also helping that clinician. So whether you want to be working with athletes or not, why would you not want to use a system that fully integrates everything, makes your life easier, makes your note taking easier, makes everything easier, so you can go back and really like focus on what it is that you like to do, which is treating and being with your patients, So
exactly.
Boom.
I mean, you nailed it. The pain point that we still uncover that people still probably don't know is like, you can just with a few clicks make the PDF, put it into your note, and then just say in your objective, see today's assessment for today's data, and that will provide, the PDF itself will provide enough justification for the reimbursement on the insurance side. And I think still there is this probably exposure needed, and you kind of touched on, is like, we probably still need to keep our branding towards health and understanding that it's not just performance related. And, that's probably just a matter of years, right? We've been a company for maybe, 10 years now, or 9 years. And, we're probably 5 and 4 with performance to health. So, the future's bright there.
I'm kind of curious, like talking about the future, what do you feel like is the future for Vald?
Tell us what's in the Vald crystal ball.
Yeah, the Vald crystal ball.
I don't know if they actually give me that much information. But I think what it comes down to is we're always going to keep our ear to the ground for like what people are saying is still the pain point, right? Like I would be, I'd be really bullish on making sure that not even this PDF to, attached to note is a day where actually the data gets API directly into the big players, right? So that was kind of a fun part of CSM for me. I just got back from Houston is, I had really good, strong conversations with a large amount of the EMRs out there of saying, this is what's being asked. Like our clients and your clients are mutual. Like we do kind of play in the same sandbox. So how can we help each other? And the benefit to them, of course, and which is kind of unique to most companies, is we theoretically want them out of our system to be more in their system, to be in their system less, right? Like most EMRs are trying to make it efficient to where they're only note taking and dictating for very small amounts of time. And we're giving them an opportunity to get off of our system to be able to be only in their system, which is kind of unique.
Yeah.
Data's everything. I mean, the norms, you guys announced the partnership with CSM, and kind of going back to how do we make a change? It all starts with impacting the biggest organizations, right? APTA being one. How do we get the payers? And if we can prove our worth and reimbursements keep going down, and that's a problem in and of itself. But if we can prove our worth, then we can stand our ground, you know what I mean, and be able to charge what we all should be charging, because we are at the forefront of, you know, this next page of medicine.
And I'd love to touch on that too, because I think, you know, one of the more common questions I always get is, how is this going to make my business money, right? Like, you're paying money for these systems. Luckily, it's not at a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 upfront cost, but still, whether it's monthly, biannually, quarterly, annually, all 3 years up front, where we work on 3-year agreements. You know, the business can pay however they'd like, but it's still going to come at a cost. And so we talk often, and one of the things that we prepare our team for is having a conversation on return on investment. We're not afraid to have a conversation on price, because we believe that value has to match price. Otherwise, we're not in the right business. And so there's a few things that we can talk about. One is, of course, cash pay services. And, you know, that I think is the easiest to be able to just say, like, how does this make us money? Okay, well, whether it's a membership model, whether it's a fee for service or fee for visit, you know, we can kind of always make that easy assumption that, hey, X number of extra visits because of this, or bringing people in might pay for it. But the large misconception is insurance. And so one of the things that we're seeing, and with our recent collaboration with the APTA, one of the things that we're going to continue to unravel and unmask is that there's actually some pretty good data of how we are helping with insurance-based companies. And there's a few ways we're doing that. Number one is, while some codes are going down historically over the last 10, 15 years in CPT codes, we're actually seeing that evaluation codes, new eval codes, are either staying the same, or in the last 10-year trend is going up.
Re-evals too, or just evals?
It's a good question. I would say at least new evals. Re-evals, of course, are probably staying the same, if anything, because it's just 10 visits, and, you know, it's showcasing a change versus the eval. But what it's telling, it's what it's incentivizing for therapy clinics to do is have more evals. Right. And so one of the ways that our systems can help with that goes even aside from just like, hey, throw someone on our systems all the time, which I wouldn't necessarily ever really always recommend either. Just depends on the context of the patient. But one of the things that I learned when I was a PT at Kaiser Permanente does not have a problem with
5 evals a day.
Yeah, they do not have a problem with getting patients in the door, because you know, they're kind of in a closed off system. So when I was there, we would see a patient, and we could only really schedule them for a second visit 3-4 weeks later. I honestly, as much as I'm sure there's probably people listening that could have,
you're gonna say it's great,
a lot of different ways. Here's why it's
great for some things.
Maybe it's not great, but it helped me learn something as a clinician. It helped me learn 2 very simple facts. Number one, time heals a lot. Right? As much as we like to put a lot of our basis behind what we're doing,
it's not us.
Time kind of can help a lot.
We're the coach. We're the coach to manage it.
Which is then point number 2, which is I had to spend my 40 minutes with them educating. I could do 15 minutes of manual, but I could also, based off of the literature, based off the articles that I'm not going to spew anymore, probably you're going to see 2-3 days of improvement. Maybe. Right. And now if you're going to see me 14 days after that, now we've got kind of a gap.
That's actually a good point, because we don't, as a cash pay like business, we also don't actually see people that frequently. We like, I'm not going to tell someone they need to be here 3 days a week and pay, you know, a lot of money to be here. Like, I see people every 2 weeks, and we get good results with the same thing. So there
the
is some
2 to 3 times a week might be also one of the negative connotations of our profession, if that's a requirement. Right. And so based off of that, kind of, if we take all of those pieces and put it together, one of the things that a traditional insurance-based clinic could do is say, you know what, we're going to test you today. We're going to teach you this exercise prescription program, right? We're going to go through your home program. We're going to show the benefits of it. And we're just going to see if we can go from 1 time a week to 1 time every other week, and maybe extend
that's where I think there's a barrier, because I don't think insurance-based clinics want to do that. Because they don't get as many visits in, and then therefore they make less money.
The insurance or the clinic itself?
The clinic itself.
Yeah. So here's the point, right? Is that
If then I extend out these plan of cares, if I charged or if I anticipated 2 times a week for 5 weeks, that's 10 visits. So plan of care is 10 visits. If as long as I still get my 10 visits on this patient, does it really matter to the clinic? Potentially, right?
Yeah.
Again, outcomes,
Yeah.
all
Yeah,
these
yeah,
other
yeah,
things
yeah,
aside.
yeah.
But then by extending them out, you open up windows
For new
For new
patients,
patients.
new
For evals.
evals.
Really good,
Yeah.
which pay more. So as long as
Yeah.
you're not burning out a PT for adding more evals in.
Yeah.
And of course, part of the eval is so like a lot of therapists like evals because
I
they're
was just
playing a
gonna say,
puzzle.
He loves
evals is
evals.
what a doctor of physical
Well, that's why-
therapy.
yeah, doctors
what
are
we should
masters,
be
yeah.
doing is evaluation. Like that's what all the knowledge and all your skills are for. It's to evaluate what is the best
Not
plan
all.
of care. What?
Not all.
Not all of them, but like that's truly what makes us different
Yeah.
than just the person executing on
Totally,
the plan.
yeah.
And that's where our value is. And I love evals. Like if I can just do evals only, like because it's fun. It's a problem. Not to call a patient a problem, but it's fun.
Yeah,
Like you're problem solving
Yeah.
And why do most people hate evals?
because of the documentation.
Documentation, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
creating this opportunity that if people really understand the value of
Yeah.
some of these systems, right? There's still the learning curve. There's still all the
Always, yeah.
opportunities to make sure you're choosing the right test.
Yeah.
And not just testing everybody for everything, but this is a way that we've actually now tried and true seen clinics make more money on an insurance model only without having to turn people into cash and all these other things.
So you mean make more money, get people better, and be less burnt out,
Yeah.
and enjoy what you do.
How about it?
The
You
PT
know?
profession
How about
survives.
Yeah,
There you
and
go.
that is how the PT profession
Yep.
survives.
One way.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the
One way.
ways. Yeah.
But yeah, and so these are just common misconceptions that we just have
Yeah.
to continue to, because what did I just take
Yeah.
10, 12 minutes saying that? Like,
Yeah.
there's probably an education barrier of putting me in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Now, that was a great podcast.
Yeah,
Now I
yeah,
can get in
yeah.
front of a few more.
Yeah.
But then the next piece is then there's other aspects of insurance around, certain billing codes and procedures. Biofeedback had a really bad rap
RPM,
early
yeah.
on because you actually didn't have documentation that proved you did biofeedback. Well, because of our reports that have force trace curves, all these
Yeah.
things, you can start billing that. And again, depending on the insurance. So it
Yeah.
all depends on a few key things: state, insurer, and ICD-10 code.
Yeah.
So you still have to kind of ask your billing partner and everyone, if you're doing things the appropriate way. But between that and 97750 physical performance tests and measures, those two codes now can be billed using our systems. And typically, we call it like reimbursement arbitrage. If you're typically billing NMR, TA, TE, MT, and it's, let's say, easy math because I don't do public math, $10.
Public math.
And the other two codes get $15. Then for that one code, you're getting $5 more. Extrapolate that to
Yeah.
For a lot
5
of
clinicians across
Yeah.
50 visits a week.
Yeah.
You're seeing profit.
Yeah.
And that's the goal of technology. It's to make life easier. Yeah, I'll go back to ValdCon a little bit. I was very inspired to be there. For us to be a smaller company, about 25 people, and then to see 300, 400 people and to see where it can go and to see an aligned mission and a mission that's been the same and a vision that's been the same from the very beginning. It was just really, really cool to see because, again, we're trying to empower not just our own teams, but everyone else that we support, our customers, our clients, and whoever it may be. That being said, I kind of want to wrap up. We created some questions for you.
Rapid fire. Kind of not
fire.
rapid
Let's do it.
fire.
Yeah, kind of rapid fire. Do you want to
Rapid-
do it? You want me
How
to-
how rapid do you need my answers?
No, it doesn't
Quick,
matter.
one
No,
word.
no.
Yeah.
No, okay. So basically, starting off, like we mentioned, we're moving into a new space in, I don't know, what, 5
Probably 1
weeks?
month, yeah.
Oh my God.
You
okay.
looked at your watch like it's
Crazy.
going to be
I know.
hours.
I
know.
know. I don't know
Like,
what day it
watch
is.
is-
I
yeah,
don't
what
know
is your
what day
watch
it
say?
is. All my days are blending together. Okay, so we're moving into a new space in just about a month. If you could design your dream gym, what is the first and most important piece of equipment you would have or add? Like what piece of, not Vald, what piece of equipment do you need to have in a gym?
I'd probably say if it's not a squat rack, maybe a kettlebell.
Okay, your
One
turn.
kill.
You get to answer these two now.
Oh.
I know. I didn't tell you this.
Oh man, can mine be Vald?
No. No. We'll ask that as a separate question. One piece of equipment.
It can. One piece of equipment.
Yeah, it can be. It can be.
A squat rack.
Mine's gonna be weird. It's gonna be a step.
Yeah.
body weight.
Yeah,
You
So
do a lot
many
of
room for
stuff.
activities.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next question.
Oh, you're taking over now? Fine.
you go.
Okay.
Go.
Okay. If there's one Vald product every ortho clinic should have, what would it be?
Dynamo.
Yeah.
Dynamo Plus.
Yeah.
Because the Dynamo Plus has push, pull, grip, range of motion.
And it's it's the cheapest product, right? Isn't it?
Well, yeah, cheap in the
Not
sense
cheap.
of
Like it's not
cost
cheaply made.
effective.
Cost
Yeah.
effective.
Yeah, there
Sorry.
we go. All good. All good. Dynamo Light is technically $9 a
Yeah.
month cheaper.
Yeah.
But we're talking, I mean, Dynamo Plus.
But I'm saying as far as like barriers, like where people don't want to spend, hundreds of dollars or whatever, it's like it's less than $100, something like that, around in that realm to get objective data and metrics.
Yeah.
It's like
Correct.
Yeah, I feel like it's like no brainer. No brainer. I already answered that question.
Yeah.
I want both.
Next question. If Vald could create one completely out of the box product, what would it be?
Out of the box in the sense of like
Well, of course,
anything.
anything.
Yeah. Like,
Anything.
What is something that like needs to be measured? Like if you could create one
Yeah.
more Vald product, what would it be?
With your hands, with your team, with the vision.
Yeah, I'd say a take home product to
Oh,
be
I
able
like
to
that.
measure everything that we probably could do in clinic
I like that.
for someone at home.
So that would be more with an iPhone or something.
Could
right?
be an
Like
iPhone,
visual,
like
yeah.
taking some movement analysis for an iPhone. Could be potentially like an IMU for it's assessing their own strength or range of
Yeah.
motion.
Yeah.
Something that allows, because RTM codes are becoming a thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Remote therapeutic monitoring. And I think we just need to be able to showcase value.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Value.
people need to
decrease
move
barriers,
when they're
increase
not in the
accessibility.
clinic.
Totally.
And if we can assess the ability to enhance that and create,
Yeah.
fun
Yeah.
parts around them doing it,
Yeah.
I think they'll do it more.
So I get to ask you that question now?
No.
If Vald can...
Well, because there's still all the other Vald things that I still want that I don't have. So there's a lot of things.
We could change that.
I figured that would be your response. Okay. What is the best, like knowing that a lot of the people who listen to this podcast are clinicians, PT students, people starting out in their careers. What is the best piece of career advice you've ever received that you would want other people to know or have?
Best advice I've received. Probably the things that you cared about 5 years ago don't matter as much today. So don't stress the little things. I think, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. Just, this society these days, we naturally want to be better. I think it's good to be a lifelong learner. It's good to be, wanting to succeed and, move on to the next step. Maybe don't sweat the little things and, just look up every now and then.
I agree.
100%.
Yeah, smell
Be
the
present.
roses.
Yeah, be
You know?
present. Like, you're not alone.
Yeah.
The pressures are all our own.
Yeah.
Society doesn't need to put pressures on us,
Yeah.
and it tries to, but they're all our own.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Last one. Heavy hitter.
All right.
What does prehab mean to you?
Oh, well,
Other than Mike and Adele,
I was
the
gonna
best
say,
podcast ever.
9 years ago, prehab still means a lot to me just because I'd say from a level of the true definition of prehab, right? I think it comes down to, don't get to that point where you have to wait in order to get moving and get started.
Yeah.
There's always an opportunity to just start today.
Yeah.
Everything else is just, keep surrounding yourselves with good people.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. And Anthony, where can people find you?
Well, I'm based in Santa Barbara, but that's probably not what you meant.
His address
His address is.
Don't come to my house. So on Instagram, I think I'm just Anthony Sinacor. On X, previously Twitter, it was Pillars of PT. And LinkedIn, we talked about
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So find me at Anthony Sinacor.
Awesome. Reach out
My
to him.
name. Basically,
Yeah,
anywhere
my
Find
my
his
name.
address,
Yeah, just
Santa
Google
Barbara,
him.
for everyone that doesn't remember.
Yeah, you can also Google his name and probably find his address.
Yeah.
Hopefully, just don't do that.
And you can find Vald in Brisbane.
Brisbane. Yeah. And everywhere. And
Everywhere.
And
Across the
everywhere.
globe.
Across the globe. Yeah. Yeah.
Anthony, appreciate your time. Love the
Guys,
stories.
this is fun.
I know,
Rehashed
this is
like
good.
a decade of history.
Oh, we could have
Crazy.
made this like
I know.
a
day.
3-hour
Yeah.
JR
Like a
podcast.
seminar. Yeah. No, this is great. And I think that again, I just am so fortunate and I feel so grateful to be around, a part of your guys' community. Again, there's so many similarities between us and I'm excited for all the changes that Prehab's going to make, Vald's going to make for our field and for our patients. Good stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
Let's do it.
Yay. Yay.